The wind howled like a living creature across the frozen plains. Snow whipped through the air, sharp as glass, biting into skin and fur alike. The small figure of a girl stumbled through the blizzard, her arms wrapped tightly around a bundle of fur. It was her pet, a small animal with soft ears and trembling paws. Its breath came in quick, weak puffs, fading against the icy night. Her name was Rin. She was young, not more than 16, and her world was merciless. The storm had come faster than expected, swallowing the sky in a blanket of white. She had tried to make it back to the village, but the storm was stronger than her legs, stronger than her lungs. Now she was lost in the endless snow with no sign of warmth or shelter. Her pet whimpered in her arms. She hugged it tighter, pressing her face into its fur as if by holding it close she could share the little warmth she still had. Tears froze on her cheeks. She whispered softly, her lips cracked and dry, "I won't let you die alone. If we go together." The snow stung her eyes, but she forced herself forward one step at a time. Her feet were numb, her fingers stiff, her body shaking violently. The cold was sinking into her bones deeper and deeper, making her weaker with every breath. Her pet gave another small cry and her heart broke. She sank to her knees, unable to go further. The storm screamed around her, drowning out every other sound. The sky above was dark, but faint lights shimmered in the distance, far too far to reach. She pulled the animal tighter, curling her body around it. Her vision blurred. She whispered, "Sleep. Maybe it won't hurt if we sleep." Her strength slipped away. She closed her eyes, ready to surrender. And then, a shadow moved in the storm. At first, she thought it was a dream. The wind cleared for a moment, and she saw a tall figure moving against the snow. Heavy boots pressed into the ice, a long coat flapped in the wind, and a helmet's visor glowed faintly in the white darkness. The figure trudged forward with purpose, scanning the storm. Rin blinked, her frozen lashes sticking together. A human. Humans were rare here, strange visitors from the stars. Most of her people only spoke of them in whispers, curious, powerful, reckless, yet kind. She had never seen one up close. Yet now here, when death was moments away, one had appeared like a ghost from legend. The human stopped when he saw her. He didn't hesitate. He rushed forward, his large form blocking the storm like a wall. He knelt beside her, pulling back his hood. His face was pale with frost, but his eyes were sharp and alive. He looked at her and at the trembling animal in her arms. "You're freezing," he said, his voice muffled by the storm but strong. Without waiting, he unstrapped the heavy pack from his shoulder and pulled out a thick insulated blanket. He wrapped it around both Rin and her pet, tucking the edges in tight. Warmth spread immediately, shocking against her frozen skin. She gasped, tears filling her eyes. The human's hands worked quickly. He checked her pulse, then pressed a small heater against the bundle to keep her pet alive. "You're safe," he said firmly. "I've got you." Rin tried to speak, but her lips were too stiff. A whisper escaped. Why help me?" The man met her eyes. Snow clung to his beard, but his voice carried a strange warmth. "Because no one deserves to die alone in the cold, not you. Not your friend." He lifted her easily into his arms, still wrapped in the blanket. Her pet stayed pressed to her chest, safe in her hold. Rin felt her body swaying as he carried her through the storm. His step steady, his grip strong. She could hear the crunch of his boots in the snow, the roar of the wind against his back. For the first time, the storm felt smaller. She looked up weakly at his face, memorizing it. A stranger, a human, yet somehow he was the only light in the endless dark. Her heart thudded weakly, clinging to life. She whispered almost to herself, "You came." The man glanced down, his eyes steady. "And I'll get you out. Both of you." The storm raged, but for Rin a spark of hope had lit. The human's arms were steady, and his presence was like fire in the ice. She held her pet close and closed her eyes, not in surrender this time, but in trust. The storm did not let up, but the human moved as if he had walked through 100 blizzards before. His coat flapped in the wind, his boots crunched through the snow, and his arms never wavered as he carried Rin and her pet. She clung to the warmth of the blanket, her small body shaking less now, though her mind was still hazy. Through half-closed eyes, Rin saw faint lights blinking in the distance. At first she thought it was her imagination again, but as the man pushed forward, the lights grew clearer. A shelter, metal walls half buried in ice, a dome glowing faintly against the storm. The man adjusted his grip on her and pushed the door open with a grunt. Warmth rushed out in a wave, carrying the scent of heated metal and dry air. Inside, the world was completely different, quiet, bright, and safe. He lowered her gently onto a padded bench near a heater and unwrapped the blanket enough to check her. Her pet was still pressed to her chest, breathing shallow but alive. "You made it," the man said softly. He pulled off his helmet, shaking out ice from his short dark hair. His face was weathered, lined by years of struggle, but his eyes were calm and kind. Rin tried to sit up, but he stopped her gently with one hand. "Don't push yourself yet. The cold nearly took you." Her throat was dry, but she managed to whisper, Who are you?" He crouched beside her, pulling a small device from his pack. It hummed softly as he ran it over her arms and legs, warming the blood beneath her skin. "Name's Marcus," he said simply. "Human explorer. I was mapping this region when I caught your signal." Rin blinked. "Signal?" Marcus nodded. "Your people must have sent a distress call when the storm hit. I picked it up by chance. I didn't expect to find a girl with her pet out here in the middle of it." His gaze softened. "You're lucky I did." She hugged her pet tighter, the animal letting out a soft whimper but nuzzling against her arm. Tears stung her eyes again. This time not from the cold but from relief. I thought we were going to die." Marcus didn't smile, but his voice was steady. "Not today." Silence filled the small shelter for a moment, broken only by the soft hum of heaters. Rin looked around at the equipment scattered across the room. Scanners, rations, survival gear. Clearly, Marcus had been prepared for the worst. She wondered why someone like him would risk so much to save her. A stranger. Finally, she asked the question that had been burning inside her. "Why did you help me, my people?" "We don't even know yours well. Some say humans are dangerous." Marcus sat back, rubbing frost from his gloves. His expression was thoughtful, almost sad. "Dangerous? Maybe, we can be. But sometimes, the real danger is doing nothing. I saw you out there, holding onto your pet even though you were freezing to death. You wouldn't let go even when you were about to lose yourself. That's not danger, that's loyalty. That's love, and I couldn't walk away from that." His words struck her like fire in her chest. She looked down at her trembling pet and stroked its fur. She had thought no one would ever understand why she stayed out in the storm. But this human did. He had seen what others might call foolish and called it strength instead. Marcus stood and walked to a cabinet, pulling out a thermal flask. He poured a steaming liquid into a small cup and handed it to her. "Drink. Slowly. It'll help warm you." She sipped, the bitter taste strange on her tongue but soothing as it spread heat through her body. Her pet licked at the rim and Marcus chuckled softly, setting down another small bowl of warm water for it. "You'll both be fine," he said, "but the storm isn't stopping soon. We'll have to stay here a while." Rin nodded weakly, though her mind was still racing. Questions pressed at her. Why was a human really here? What did he mean by mapping? And why had fate brought him to her at the very edge of death? As if sensing her thoughts, Marcus sat back down and spoke quietly. "I didn't tell you everything. I wasn't just mapping. I was searching for signs of life, signs of something worth saving." His eyes met hers. "And I think I found it tonight." Rin's breath caught. She looked at him, then at her pet curled in her lap, and finally at the heater glowing beside them. For the first time since the storm swallowed her world, she felt a spark of hope, not just for survival, but for something larger. She whispered softly, almost to herself. "Maybe humans aren't what we thought." Marcus's lips curved in the faintest smile. "And maybe neither are you." The storm howled outside, but inside the shelter, warmth and something new, trust began to grow. The storm outside raged on, beating against the walls of the shelter like fists of ice. Inside, the small heater glowed softly, filling the space with a fragile warmth. Rin sat wrapped in the heavy blanket, her pet curled against her chest, its tiny breath steadier now. Marcus moved quietly around the room, checking instruments and writing notes on a small datapad. Rin watched him for a long time, unsure what to say. She had never been this close to a human before. His movements were calm but precise, every action deliberate. He carried himself like someone who had survived more storms than he could count. Finally, her voice broke the silence. "You said you were searching. What were you really looking for?" Marcus paused, glancing at her with tired eyes. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he sighed and sat down across from her. "I wasn't just mapping land. I was tracking signals, energy readings. Something unnatural in these storms." Rin frowned. "Unnatural? But the storms have always been here. They're part of this world. Marcus shook his head slowly. No, these aren't just weather patterns. They're too strong, too sudden. It's like something is feeding them, pushing them harder. Her stomach tightened. She thought of how quickly the blizzard had swallowed her that day. How it felt almost alive. You mean, someone is causing them? Maybe, Marcus admitted. Or something. I don't know yet. But I do know this. If it keeps going, your people won't survive many more winters. Rin hugged her pet tighter, her heart racing. Her village had already lost many to the cold. If the storms grew worse, there would be no one left. She looked at Marcus with wide eyes. Why would you care? You're not from here. Marcus leaned forward, his gaze steady. Because I've seen this before. Other colonies. Other worlds. People always say the same thing. It's normal. We can survive it. Until one day they can't, and then it's too late. His words were heavy, pressing into her chest. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but deep down she knew he wasn't. She had seen the fear in her parents' faces when storms came. She had felt the hopelessness in the way the villagers spoke of winter. She swallowed hard. Then what do we do? Marcus studied her, his expression unreadable. First, we survive this storm. Then maybe. We fight back. The thought stunned her. Fight back against the storm? It sounded impossible. But then again, wasn't it impossible that she was alive right now? A human she had never met had carried her through death's grip, simply because he chose to. Maybe impossible things weren't as far away as they seemed. The heater hummed softly. Rin's pet shifted in her arms, pressing its warm body against her. She stroked its fur absent-mindedly, her thoughts swirling. Marcus stood and began pulling supplies from his pack. Tools, rations, a small device that projected a faint blue map into the air. Rin leaned forward, fascinated. What is that? Scanner, Marcus explained. Tracks energy patterns, and lately they've been stronger near the mountains. He pointed at a glowing cluster on the map. Something is buried there. Something that's twisting the weather. Rin's eyes widened. You think that's what's killing my people? Marcus nodded slowly. If I'm right, then yes. And if we don't stop it, no one will survive here. The thought made her shiver, though the room was warm. She looked down at her pet, then back at Marcus. Why tell me this? I'm just me. I'm no leader. I can't help. Marcus gave her a long look, then shook his head. You're wrong. When I found you out there, you were freezing to death, but you didn't let go of your pet. You didn't give up on it. That tells me you're stronger than you think. Strength isn't always about fighting. Sometimes it's about refusing to let go. His words sank into her heart. No one had ever spoken to her like that. In her village, she was just another mouth to feed, another pair of hands. But this human looked at her and saw something different. Before she could respond, the shelter shook. A low rumble echoed through the walls and the lights flickered. Marcus jumped to his feet, scanning the monitors. Damn it, he muttered. The storm's getting stronger. Too strong. Rin clutched her pet, fear rising again. Is the shelter safe? Marcus didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened as he checked the readings. For now. But if this keeps up, it'll bury us under ice. We may have to move sooner than I thought. Her chest tightened. Out there, the storm was death. But she trusted Marcus. She had to. She whispered, Then I'll follow you. Marcus looked at her, surprised by the certainty in her voice. Slowly, he nodded. Good. Because I think the storm is trying to stop us from finding what's out there. And if that's true, then it means we're getting close to the truth. The shelter groaned again under the weight of snow, as if the world itself was warning them. Rin held her pet tight, her heart pounding. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew this. She was no longer facing it alone. The shelter groaned under the weight of the storm. Snow piled against the walls, and the heater flickered now and then, as if even its strength was being tested. Marcus moved quickly, checking the structural supports, his face set in grim focus. Rin hugged her pet close, watching him with wide, nervous eyes. Can the shelter hold? She asked. Marcus shook his head slightly. Not forever. It was built for explorers, not for storms this strong. If we stay here, we'll be buried alive. Rin's heart tightened. The idea of going back into the storm terrified her. She remembered the cold sinking into her bones, the feeling of death pressing close. But Marcus's calm voice gave her a thread of courage. Where would we go? She asked softly. He pointed at the glowing map still projected in the air. There, the mountains. That's where the signals come from. If we can reach them, we may find the source of the storms and a way to stop them. Rin stared at the flickering blue lines on the map. The mountains looked impossibly far. She whispered, "We'll never survive the journey." Marcus met her eyes, steady and unflinching. "We almost didn't survive last night. But we're here. That means we can keep going." His words struck something inside her. She had been ready to give up, ready to freeze with her pet in her arms. Yet this human had carried her through the storm, had refused to let her die. If he believed they could survive, maybe they could. The next morning cycle, Marcus packed supplies into 2 heavy bags. One he slung over his own back. The other he adjusted carefully onto Rin's shoulders. It was smaller, lighter, filled with food, a small heater, and a blanket for her and her pet. Rin looked up at him nervously. "I'm not strong like you." Marcus crouched, tightening the straps of her bag. "Strength isn't about size. It's about moving forward, even when you're afraid. You've already proven you can do that." Her pet whined softly, pressing its head against her cheek. She stroked its fur and whispered, "I'll try." Marcus gave her a small nod. "That's all you need to do. Try, and keep trying." When they stepped outside, the storm struck them immediately. Wind howled, snow swirled, and the cold clawed at every gap in their clothes. Marcus moved first, his large frame blocking some of the wind. Rin followed in his steps, her head bent low, clutching her pet close under the blanket. They walked for hours, each step heavy and slow. The snow seemed endless, the white world stretching in all directions. Several times Rin stumbled, her legs shaking from exhaustion. Each time Marcus reached back, steadying her with a firm hand. "One more step," he said. "Always one more." By the third stumble, she was nearly in tears. "I can't," she gasped. "It's too much." Marcus knelt in front of her, his face level with hers. "You said that last night too," he reminded her gently. "But you're still here. You're stronger than you think." Her pet whimpered, licking her hand. She looked at it, then at Marcus. Slowly she nodded. "One more step," and she kept walking. As the hours passed, the storm began to shift. The wind screamed louder, the snow sharper, almost blinding. Marcus checked his scanner, frowning. "It's worse than I thought. The energy spikes are stronger here. Something's pushing the storm harder." Rin shivered. "It feels like it doesn't want us to come closer." Marcus glanced at her sharply. "That's because it doesn't." Her stomach knotted at his words, but she didn't ask more. She only tightened her grip on her pet and pressed forward. By nightfall, they reached a jagged outcrop of rocks. Marcus led her into a narrow cave, shielding the entrance with a heat tarp from his pack. Inside, it was cramped but safe from the worst of the wind. They sat together, their breaths forming clouds in the dim light. Rin curled against the wall, her pet in her lap. "Marcus," she said quietly, "what if we never find anything? What if the mountains are empty?" Marcus leaned back against the stone, his face thoughtful. "Then we keep looking, because if we stop, the storms win, and I don't plan on losing." His certainty steadied her heart. She whispered, "Why do you care so much? You could have left me. You could leave now." Marcus's eyes softened, "Because that's what it means to be human. We don't just fight for ourselves. We fight for anyone who needs us." Rin stared at him in the flickering light. The words sank deep, warming her in a way the heater couldn't. She looked down at her pet, then back at him and whispered, "Then maybe humans really are special." Outside, the storm roared louder than ever, shaking the mountains in the distance. But inside the cave, Rin felt something new growing in her chest. Not just hope, but the beginning of courage. The valley shook as though the ice itself had come alive. The glowing cracks widened, spilling light so bright that Rin had to shield her eyes. Her pet buried its head against her chest, trembling. Marcus pulled her close, his eyes locked on the fissure. From deep below, a low hum rose, growing louder with every second. The sound wasn't natural, it was mechanical, ancient, and heavy with power. The storm above screamed in answer, lightning splitting the dark sky, bolts flashing white and blue. Rin's voice trembled. "It feels like it's angry." Marcus nodded grimly. "It knows we're here, and it doesn't want us near its heart." The ice beneath them shuddered again. Suddenly, jagged shards shot up from the ground like spears, forcing them to leap aside. One sharp crystal tore Marcus's sleeve, cutting his arm. He gritted his teeth but kept his balance. "It's defending itself." Rin clutched her pet tighter, fear flooding through her. "How do we fight something buried in the ground?" Marcus glanced at her, steady even as chaos raged around them. "We don't fight it like a monster. We find the core. We shut it down. Machines have weaknesses no matter how old they are. He pulled a small explosive charge from his pack, showing her. This won't destroy it completely, but if we place it near the power lines, it might cut off its energy. That could weaken the storms. Rin swallowed hard. And if it doesn't? Marcus's jaw tightened. Then we run. But at least we'll know we tried. The fissure widened further, and out of the glowing light, shapes began to rise. Metallic fragments, broken but moving, floated upward as if held by invisible strings. They twisted in the air, forming jagged constructs like guardians made of shattered steel and ice. Their glowing eyes fixed on Marcus and Rin. Rin gasped. It's making... Defenders? Marcus's grip tightened on her shoulder. Stay behind me. He pulled out his plasma cutter, its blue blade sparking to life. The first construct lunged forward, shards spinning like blades. Marcus swung, slicing through it, but 2 more rose in its place. The valley became a battlefield. Marcus fought fiercely, cutting down one construct after another, but they kept reforming from the ice and debris. Rin stayed close, her pet pressed against her chest, her eyes darting between Marcus and the glowing fissure. Her heart pounded. She wanted to help, but what could she do? She was just a girl with no weapons, no strength. Then she remembered Marcus's words. Strength isn't about size. It's about moving forward even when you're afraid. Her gaze fixed on the fissure. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, stronger than anything else in the valley. That had to be the core Marcus spoke of. If the defenders were endless, then the only hope was to reach the heart itself. She grabbed Marcus's arm as he swung at another construct. I'll go. I can reach the core. His eyes widened. No, it's too dangerous. But Rin shook her head, determination blazing through her fear. You can't fight and place the charge at the same time. I can do it. I'm smaller, I can slip past them. Please trust me. For a moment Marcus hesitated, his jaw tight. But then he saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire he had seen when she refused to let go of her pet in the storm. He nodded quickly, shoving the explosive charge into her hands. Stay low. Don't stop moving. Place it near the brightest point of the fissure. Rin clutched the device, her fingers trembling, then pressed her pet into Marcus's arms. Keep him safe. Before fear could stop her, she sprinted toward the fissure. The wind screamed, the ground cracked, and constructs lunged, their jagged limbs slicing through the air. She ducked low, sliding across the ice, the light of the fissure burning brighter with every step. One construct blocked her path, its glowing eyes locking onto her. She froze, but then a sharp flash cut through the air. Marcus's plasma cutter struck from behind, shattering the construct into shards. Go, he shouted. Rin ran again, her lungs burning, her legs weak but unyielding. She reached the edge of the fissure, where the light pulsed so strongly it vibrated through her bones. The heat of it burned against her skin. She dropped to her knees, pulled the charge from her pack, and pressed it into a crack glowing brightest. The fissure responded instantly. A roar echoed from deep below, the storm above twisting violently as if the sky itself were screaming. The constructs froze mid-motion, their bodies shaking. Now, Marcus shouted. Detonate it. Rin slammed her hand onto the trigger. A deafening boom shook the valley. Light erupted from the fissure, blinding and fierce. The ground split, cracks racing outward like spiderwebs. The constructs shattered into pieces, their forms dissolving into sparks. The storm above wailed, lightning tearing across the sky, then began to weaken. Snow still fell, but softer now. The wind eased, the roar fading into silence. The storm was breaking. Rin collapsed onto the ice, gasping, her heart hammering in her chest. Marcus rushed to her, her pet in his arms, his eyes filled with relief. He pulled her up, holding her tightly. You did it. You stopped it. She clung to him, trembling but alive. She looked around at the crack still glowing faintly, then at the sky above. For the first time, stars shone through the clouds. Her voice was small but filled with awe. We made the storm end. Marcus nodded, his grip firm on her shoulder. You did. You were braver than anyone I've ever known. The valley lay quiet now, but both of them knew the fight wasn't over. The machine was wounded, not destroyed. And somewhere deep beneath the ice, its heart still pulsed. The valley was quiet for only a short moment. Rin leaned against Marcus, her chest rising and falling fast, her pet tucked safely against her. She thought it was over, that the storm had finally broken, but then the ground shuddered again, harder than before. The cracks that glowed beneath the ice flared brighter, like veins of fire spreading through glass. Marcus pulled her to her feet quickly. No, he muttered. It's not finished. That was only the surface. Rin's stomach twisted. You mean, it's still alive? He gave a sharp nod. The charge weakened it, but it only made the core angry. It knows we're trying to stop it. Before Rin could reply, the ground split wide behind them and a massive column of light erupted upward, reaching into the stormy sky. The blizzard howled again, even fiercer. The wind so strong it nearly knocked her off her feet. Marcus grabbed her arm and held tight. It's fighting back with everything it has left. The glowing cracks began to shift, moving like rivers of energy under the ice. Huge chunks of frozen ground lifted and fell as if the valley itself were alive. Rin stumbled, her legs trembling. She hugged her pet close, whispering, "Hold on, hold on." Marcus scanned the fissure with his device, his face grim. The main core is deeper, much deeper. If we don't reach it, the storms will only grow stronger. The charge slowed it down, but now we'll have to face its heart. Rin's breath caught in her throat. Face it? How? He looked at her with steady eyes, though sweat glistened on his forehead despite the cold. We go inside, her eyes widened. Inside the machine? Yes, Marcus said firmly. The fissure is opening, it's a path down. Dangerous, but maybe our only chance. Rin looked at the glowing canyon of light splitting before them. Heat rolled out of it, strange and unnatural, like a furnace buried in the planet's chest. The idea of stepping into it filled her with terror. Yet she remembered her village, the families waiting for storms that never ended. If she turned back now, they would all die. She tightened her grip on her pet and nodded slowly. Then let's go. Marcus gave her a small, approving nod. Stay close. Don't let go of me no matter what. They climbed down into the fissure, the glow surrounding them. The walls of ice gave way to something else. Metal, ancient and scarred, covered in strange markings that pulsed faintly. Rin touched one with her free hand and shivered. It felt warm, alive, like skin. This isn't just a machine, she whispered. Marcus's jaw tightened. It's both. Technology fused with something more. I've seen pieces like this on other worlds, but never one this strong. Whatever built it wanted control. The deeper they went, the louder the hum became. It rattled through their bones, making Rin's head ache. Her pet whimpered, burying itself into her chest. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. We're close. At last they stepped into a vast chamber. The core loomed before them, a colossal sphere pulsing with light suspended by streams of energy. Each pulse shook the chamber, and with every beat the storm above answered with thunder. Rin froze in awe and fear. It's alive, Marcus nodded grimly. Alive enough to know we're here. And it doesn't like us. As if hearing him, arcs of energy lashed out from the core, striking the walls and floor. The ground shook violently. From the edges of the chamber, more constructs formed, twisting from shards of metal and ice. They marched toward them, glowing eyes locked on the intruders. Marcus pulled out his plasma cutter again, its blue blade hissing to life. I'll hold them off, he said quickly. You have to reach the core. Rin's eyes widened in panic. Me. I don't know how. Yes, you do. Marcus's voice was firm. The core responds to life. That's why the storm is worse around you. It feels you. You can reach it in ways I can't. Rin shook her head, fear flooding through her. I'm not strong enough. Marcus crouched, gripping her shoulders tight. His eyes burned with certainty. You are. You carried your pet through a storm that should have killed you. You didn't give up even when it was easier to die. That's strength. You have it. And now the whole world needs it. Her throat tightened, tears stinging her eyes. She looked at the glowing sphere, its light pulsing like a giant heart. Fear screamed at her to run, but Marcus's words wrapped around her like armor. She wiped her eyes quickly and nodded. All right, I'll try. Marcus smiled faintly. That's all I ask. Now go. He turned, swinging his blade at the nearest construct, sparks flying as he fought them back. Rin clutched her pet close, then ran forward toward the pulsing heart of the machine. Energy lashed around her, but she pushed on, each step carrying her deeper into the storm's core. The fate of her world waited in her hands. The chamber pulsed with blinding light. The machine's core throbbed like a massive heart, sending out waves of energy that made the ground shake. Rin ran across the glowing floor, clutching her pet close, her breath ragged. Behind her, Marcus fought fiercely, his plasma cutter sparking as he slashed through the constructs that rose from ice and steel. Each time he cut one down, another rose again. Go, Rin, he shouted over the roar. Don't stop. She stumbled but forced her legs forward. Every pulse from the core made her body tremble. It wasn't just sound, it was something deeper, like a voice pressing into her mind. She froze for a moment as a strange whisper filled her head. Leave, leave, you are too small. Her chest tightened. She wanted to curl up to hide, but then she looked at her pet in her arms. Its tiny eyes looked up at her with trust. She thought of her village, her family, the faces of people waiting for the storms to end. She shook her head, her voice breaking. I'm not too small. I can do this. The whisper grew louder. You will fail. You will die. Rin gritted her teeth and took another step. Marcus's voice rang out behind her, strong and steady. Ignore it. Machines don't know courage. Only people do. She clung to his words and pressed on. At last she stood before the core itself. It was enormous, glowing with blinding light. Streams of energy swirling around it like a storm within glass. Her knees buckled under its power, but she dropped to her hands and pressed her palm against its surface. The whisper screamed. You cannot stop me. But something strange happened. The glow beneath her hand flickered, not with anger but with confusion. The machine had expected fear. Instead, it felt something else. Warmth, the bond between Rin and her pet, the stubborn will of a girl who refused to let go. Her pet gave a soft cry and pressed its tiny paw against the core beside her hand. Together they formed a fragile but powerful link. The core's light wavered again. Marcus fought desperately behind her, his blade slowing. He risked a glance and shouted, Now, Rin! It's listening to you, end it. Tears blurred her vision, but she shouted with all her strength, You've hurt my people long enough. No more storms. No more fear, stop. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the core pulsed wildly, light flickering out of control. The constructs froze mid-motion, collapsing into shards. The storm outside howled one last time, and then silence. The chamber trembled as cracks raced across the sphere. With a thunderous roar, the core split, spilling its energy upward in a final blinding burst. Rin threw herself to the ground, shielding her pet. Marcus rushed forward, covering them both with his body as the machine collapsed. When the light faded, only silence remained. The hum was gone. The glow beneath the ice had vanished. The storm above had broken. Rin lifted her head slowly, her body aching. For the first time in her life, she heard nothing outside but the gentle whisper of wind, soft and harmless. She crawled forward and looked at the shattered remains of the core. It was dead. Truly dead. Marcus helped her to her feet, his arms steady around her shoulders. His face was bruised, his coat torn, but his eyes burned with pride. You did it, he said quietly. You saved them. Rin clutched her pet close, her tears falling freely. We saved them, she corrected. She looked up at him, her voice shaking. I never would have believed I could. But you believed. Marcus gave a faint smile. Sometimes all it takes is one person who refuses to give up. You were that person today. Together, they climbed out of the fissure. The sky above was clear, the storm gone. For the first time, sunlight broke through the clouds, painting the snow in gold. Rin gasped, seeing the stars fading into morning light. Her world was no longer trapped under endless blizzards. When they returned to the village days later, the people gathered in awe. They saw Rin, once just a quiet girl, walking beside a human carrying her pet proudly. They listened as Marcus told them of her courage, of how she had faced the storm's heart and broken it. And from that day forward, the people no longer whispered fearfully about humans. Instead, they remembered the one who had come through a storm to save a girl and her pet, and how together they had ended a terror that had haunted them for generations. Rin never forgot that night on the frozen plains, when she thought she would die holding the only friend she had left. Instead, she had found strength, hope, and a human who believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. The storms were gone. The world was free, and in the quiet warmth of her home she held her pet close and whispered, We made it. We really made it. Marcus stood nearby, looking out at the calm sky. For the first time in many years, he allowed himself to believe in something greater too. That even in the coldest, darkest places, the human heart could bring light. The human heart could bring light.